Hello, this is Michael Vellucci with the Roofmen. I'm over here at Mr. Gregory Dansky's property, Spotted Trail Pony in Alpharetta. I'm going to go over some of the preliminary steps that we do before we apply felt paper and shingle. Many of my customers question the application, how it's different from other contractors. And many of the contractors don't seem to understand that there's many steps involved in preparing, applying, and finishing up a roofing system in order for it to last the longevity that the manufacturer is specifying. 25-year shingle, 30-year shingle, or GAF's phenomenal lifetime shingle, which, if you read the fine print, is 50 years. All right, some of the things that we're going to go over. Not all the homes that you'll see in Georgia will have these H clips. Okay, if you look at this one closely, you'll see that when you're tearing off the shingles, you do bend them up. Okay, these need to be fastened back down so that they're like that. Okay, the reason that these clips are so important during the summer months when the plywood expands, well, that's when the boards will butt up against each other and then flex. You can look at many roofs in your neighborhood, and on a nice sunny day, look up, and when you see all them lines, oh, if you can kind of, if you know what a piece of plywood looks like, that 4 feet by 8 feet rectangle, you pretty much can recognize the issue that I'm talking about, and you'll be able to see the bowing of the plywood. So once we tear off all the shingles, I do a visual inspection. Many homes don't have these H clips that are required in the building industry. Many of the buildings don't even know about it. Never mind the framing contractors that do these new construction presently in 2012 know about them, never mind use them. But that's the reason for the H clips. Okay, some of the important issues that Mr. Dansky here, the customer, I made him aware of, is he had an attic that was extremely hot, and there was some issues going on the outside of the house with some paint peeling, mildewing, some algae, not to mention the shingles were extremely dry. So I wanted to question his ventilation system, and just keep looking into it as we go along in the project here. All right, now the plywood. A lot of the plywood has been replaced. Oh, I don't know. I think this was 13 years ago that this roof was installed. So a lot of the plywood, when you're stepping on it, this OSD product, which is a very good product, but there's some complications with it, and when it does get dried, because it is a manufactured, glued together pieces of wood, it can lose its integrity. Whereas a piece of plywood, even though it'll dry out, is quite significantly stronger than OSB board. But as long as OSB board is protected from the elements of the weather, particularly rain, and the ventilation issues, particularly heat, this board can last the life of the house itself. Okay, all right, some of the other things that we're going to focus on here is drip edging. Okay, drip edge is a product that is been used in the roofing industry for years. Again, you're not going to find many contractors in the area that even know what roofing drip edge is. Not to mention that they don't even know what it's for. So another thing that I try to express to my customers of how I do a roof, why I am so adamant about the steps and the procedures and the application, how it's supposed to be installed. Okay, this drip edge here is, my shadow is kind of blocking it here. Okay, this drip edge is up tight against the fascia board here. There's my finger there. fascia board here, and resting on top of the decking here, it has about a 1/4 of an inch lip. This one here, about 3/8, almost a 1/2 inch. And that's great because we like to leave our shingles hanging over the drip edge a 1/2 of an inch. And in order to have a shingle hanging over a 1/2 of an inch, everything has to be square, measured, leveled, in line. The typical application that you'll see amongst many of the roofers is letting the shingles hang over the house 2-3 inches, in some occasions even 4 inches. I have an example right here of this gentleman who got a roof done last year, and again, you can't see, maybe, I don't know if you can, but that bay window, rather than having a nice tight fit application with drip edge and the shingles adhere to the drip edge and everything measured accordingly with precise overlay, alignment, and the edging, which would have gave it, I believe, just a very professional, fantastic look, but not to mention, more importantly, an efficient roofing system that was there to do its job. Because technically right there, that's not doing anything. It's a gamble. The rain will hopefully wash off the end of that shingle, drop down into the bushes, but with it hanging over so much, shingles have a tendency to dry out. They're asphalt. The weather will start to accumulate the drying process, and a branch, a wind, somebody getting up on a ladder to clean gutters, they'll break those edges off. When those break off, you're now exposing the wood fascia, the house, the decking, many of the elements that are not meant to get wet on a repeated basis. So, all right, the drip edge. Right now, I got the guys putting the drip edge. Another important step is drip edge on the eave. The eave is considered where the gutter is. On that area there, the drip edge goes down first. The underlayment, which will then be applied over that drip edge. I adhere it to the drip edge, and I'll show you later on when we get to that step, and I'll explain why that's important to do. Again, many of my customers, they might hear some misinformation from one of their neighbors about how their roofer came in and just threw everything together, and he was so quick and fast in one day. And I get a little surprised that anybody of today would accept somebody rushing, trying to get done very quick, and not understand the importance of all the steps in a roofing system, not to mention gutters, siding, paint, caulking, and other components that are very important that we offer free of charge with my free home inspection. When I'm analyzing and inspecting their roof, I like to look at the entire property and just give them some free advice, whether good or bad. Okay, over here, as you can see, there was some straight flashing that was put down initially here, and the straight flashing is one of the methods that is still used, but quite frankly, it's not a method that is been proven to be 100% effective all the time. Step flashing, as you can see here, we had to remove a piece of the siding in order to start the step flashing process up the boards. But again, the wood being kind of weathered and starting to deteriorate, I don't mind replacing some. We're going to do some painting for the customer, as I always do, and more importantly, get his house up to date with a roofing system that's going to work effectively and also eliminate the possibilities of any water intrusion. So that's that step flashing that you see there. As you'll notice, there's no nails here, okay? And there's no nails on this side, but you need a nail here on the top. As we put the shingles down, you'll see some adhesive tar placed over the nails, and then the shingle will go over that. That's all the nails that you want there. You want the flexibility, especially with the house. A house can shift, and it will shift when there's winds and settling, and mostly on heavy windy days. And if you were to nail the top and the bottom, well, then you can start creasing the metal, which in turn will crease up the shingle, which in turn can cause some access for some water to work its way in, and that's what we don't want. So that's the reason why you only put a nail on one side of the step flashing. In addition to the step flashing here, we're going to put some ice and water shield underneath the flashing. It's a it's a membrane product that is 100% moisture and water. Let's see. Well, we're going to be using ice and water shield that will be placed underneath the flashing here, and the back side of it has a sticky adhesive that will stick to the plywood. But that's just another extra preventative measure in case water or moisture does get behind the flashing, through the shingle, behind the flashing, onto the what would have been the wood decking. But we'll have the ice and water shield, which then it'll ride onto the surface of that, preferably all the way down to the bottom near the gutter. As you can see, he has his H-clips horizontally everywhere. It's very tricky to have them installed on the vertical portions of the plywood, but again, a good contractor will know to space the plywood accordingly to kind of well, the plywood will be spaced accordingly so that the H-clips will not be needed on the vertical sections. Now, once again, you find any of the roofing contractors in the area that do the inspection and the supervision